The Bermuda Triangle, long called the graveyard of ships and planes, has haunted people for generations. For decades, stories have circulated about disappearances with no clear explanation. Massive vessels, modern aircraft, crews led by seasoned pilots, sailors, and captains, vanishing while crossing a stretch of ocean that looks completely ordinary. The ocean is vast, so why does this one region carry so many terrifying stories? And if something truly unusual is happening there, how are we supposed to explain it? There are many ways to get closer to the truth. Compare historical records, revisit official reports, listen to eyewitness accounts, or trace the rare cases where someone disappeared and later returned. After decades, new pieces of evidence have surfaced. But the most unsettling part is this: even when there are facts, they still don't always add up to a certain answer. Welcome back to Dark Origin. Today, we begin a journey titled The Final Mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. If you crave the eerie mysteries of the deep, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. And now, let's begin. The Bermuda Triangle is usually described as a large area of the Atlantic Ocean bordered by Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Over the years, countless ships and aircraft have been reported to suffer accidents, lose contact, or disappear while passing through it. What made the place famous wasn't only the number of incidents, it was the feeling of no trace left behind, gone, and then silence. From there, theories multiplied. Some blame magnetic anomalies that scramble navigation systems, others point to fast-forming storms or rogue waves that can swallow a vessel in minutes. And the most extreme theories went further, talking about space-time rifts or even extraterrestrials. But there's another question we have to ask. If we're talking about disappearances at sea, the world has many dangerous waters. So why does Bermuda become the name everyone remembers? Some of the strange stories tied to this region are even pushed back into early maritime history. Popular accounts claim Christopher Columbus noted unusual compass behavior while crossing the Atlantic. Whether that detail is accurate is still debated, and it's often retold in a more mystical way than the evidence supports. But it helped paint Bermuda as a place that felt different. Fear around the Bermuda Triangle surged in the mid-20th century when newspapers began compiling lists of disappearances and incidents in the area. People talked about military flights that lost contact, civilian aircraft that never arrived, and ships that failed to return on schedule. The numbers varied depending on the source, but one thing stayed the same: the list kept growing, and the public became more convinced that something was hiding beneath the surface. By the 1970s, the obsession spread even further through books and popular media focused on the Bermuda Triangle. These works often gathered famous cases and layered them with explanations. Some sounded scientific, others felt like legend, and that mixture is exactly what turned the Bermuda Triangle into a symbol of mystery. So what really happened out there? There are too many cases, big and small, to cover in a single video. But I'm going to focus on the most iconic, the one often treated as the Bermuda Triangle's defining legend, Flight 19. This incident is recorded on December 5, 1945. That day in Florida, USA, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers took off for a routine training mission. The group was known as Flight 19. On paper, it was ordinary, just a few hours of training over the ocean, then back to base. And yes, it would have been completely normal until everything started to go wrong. The officer in charge and the lead pilot was Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, an experienced combat aviator. The planes launched in decent conditions. But after some time in the air, Taylor began reporting problems. He said the navigation instruments were malfunctioning, the compass readings didn't make sense, and he was no longer sure of their position. Things got worse when the pilots couldn't agree on a clear heading. When your sense of location collapses, one wrong decision can turn open water into a trap. And from here, the story becomes truly frightening. Taylor questioned the other pilots in the formation, but the answers he got only made things worse. No one was certain where they were. He radioed the control station and delivered a line that sent a chill through everyone listening. "I don't know where we are. We must have gotten lost after a turn." Taylor tried to lay out a recovery plan, hold a heading for a set amount of time, then change course to avoid drifting too far to the southwest. But the problem was brutal. When the instruments can't be trusted, and when every pilot is holding a different map in his head, every decision can become the wrong one. In the transmissions that followed, Taylor said he could see islands below and believed they were the Bahamas. If he was right, they were east of Florida. If he was wrong, they might already be far farther out than anyone imagined. In principle, the guidance for flights off the Florida coast was simple and practical. If you're lost over water and unsure of your position, the safest move is to identify west and head back toward the Florida mainland. But Taylor feared they had drifted too far southwest, possibly toward the Gulf of Mexico, so he ordered the squadron to fly northeast to avoid going deeper into the Gulf. That decision immediately raised alarms within the formation. Over the radio, air traffic control could hear one pilot challenge the order. "Sir, are you sure? Why are we going northeast?" Tension tightened in the air. Some pilots urged to turn west to regain land. After repeated arguments, Taylor agreed and the formation changed course. But not long after, he reversed himself again, still convinced they were in the Florida Gulf and needed a different heading to get home. As time passed, the radio signal weakened. Controllers noted voices breaking up, fading in and out, like the distance between the squadron and land was stretching minute by minute. The last clear message, most commonly remembered as being heard from Taylor, was a warning that turns your stomach. Fuel was running low, and they might have to prepare to ditch at sea. And that is almost all we have left of Flight 19. 5 aircraft, 14 men, gone. But the story didn't end there. The moment Flight 19 was reported missing, the U.S. Navy launched a search and rescue operation. A rescue aircraft was dispatched, often identified as a PBM Mariner, though many accounts mistakenly call it a Catalina, with 13 people on board. And then shortly after takeoff, the rescue aircraft also vanished from tracking. No clear distress call, no confirmed contact. Silence. One detail often repeated comes from sailors on a tanker passing through the area. They reported seeing a flash of fire, a loud explosion in the sky, and then streaks of oil spreading across the surface. No one can state with absolute certainty what happened, but that single report made the entire situation feel even darker. Technically, the PBM Mariner had a history that makes such a scenario plausible. It was a large flying boat carrying significant fuel, and there had been past incidents involving explosions linked to mechanical trouble, engine issues, or fuel leaks. In that context, the rescue aircraft exploded in midair is a grounded possibility, not something supernatural. By the next morning, the search expanded massively. Hundreds of ships and aircraft were mobilized, combing a wide area for days. But the terrifying part was the outcome. Almost nothing. No bodies, no confirmed debris, no clear trace strong enough to close the case. And that empty space is exactly what turned the Bermuda Triangle into a legend. Because when a gap is that large, theories rush in. Some blamed extraterrestrials. Others spoke of an unseen force that shattered the pilot's judgment. Some asked a simpler question. Why didn't they transmit a proper distress call before they disappeared? But radio in that era wasn't what it is today. Connections could fade, frequencies could be jammed or distorted, and in a panic situation over open water, people don't always follow procedure perfectly. The absence of a clear distress call is not proof of anything supernatural. After weeks of investigation, the U.S. Navy issued a provisional conclusion that leaned toward the most reasonable explanation. Flight 19 became disoriented due to navigational confusion, instrument problems, and worsening conditions. The commander's decisions carried the entire formation farther from safety, and in the end, they ran out of fuel and went down at sea. As for the rescue aircraft, the Navy believed it may have exploded due to a technical failure not long after takeoff. And if debris fell into the sea, currents and heavy surf could have scattered it so widely that recovery became nearly impossible. But even if that conclusion sounds reasonable, it still leaves one stubborn question behind. How does a well-trained squadron fall into a chain of mistakes so severe that none of them make it home? And that is why, even now, Bermuda has never stopped haunting people. Still, the lost and ran out of fuel explanation wasn't enough to satisfy the public. A place where ships and planes could vanish so completely became instant fuel for the imagination. And the legend of the Bermuda Triangle kept spreading, right up to the present day. In 1991, several newspapers reported that an undersea expedition led by Graham Hawkes, using advanced survey equipment, claimed to have found traces of multiple Avenger-type aircraft on the seabed off the coast near Fort Lauderdale. The news sparked immediate hope. Could this finally be Flight 19? But later, when investigators compared serial numbers and identifying markings, they conceded that at least the aircraft that could be confirmed did not match Flight 19. In other words, they may have found crashed aircraft, but not Flight 19's aircraft. And that distinction matters. This region saw years of naval and aviation activity, including training routes and patrol operations. So finding wrecks scattered across the seafloor is entirely possible, without proving the presence of any mysterious force. Even so, the core question remained: why did Flight 19 and the search aircraft sent after them disappear with so little clear evidence? That kind of absence is what made the Bermuda Triangle more famous than ever. It showed up everywhere: films, games, magazines, and endless retellings. And the more people looked into it, the more they realized Flight 19 was not the first large-scale disappearance associated with these waters. One of the most haunting names is USS Cyclops. USS Cyclops was a massive U.S. Navy collier and supply ship of the Proteus class. Roughly 165 meters long and about 20 meters wide, it was, by the standards of its era, a floating block of steel. It was originally built to carry coal and support fleet operations, but during wartime, it also transported strategic cargo. In March 1918, USS Cyclops was traveling back to Baltimore from the South Atlantic after a stop in Barbados. On board were more than 300 people, many sources cite 309. And more importantly, the ship was carrying strategic freight, manganese ore, often reported at around 10,000 tons. Its route crossed waters that later became loosely bundled into the Bermuda region. But what turned this case into legend wasn't the exact coordinates. It was the outcome. USS Cyclops vanished completely. No distress signal, no confirmed wreckage, no trace that could pinpoint where it went down or how. The U.S. Navy launched a search, but the more they looked, the quieter the world became. They couldn't even establish the precise moment of disaster, because after Cyclops left Barbados, it was as if the ocean erased it from the map. At the time, the loss was staggering. Cyclops was a huge high-value ship, and its vanish without a trace story hit like a shockwave. Naturally, theories followed. One theory claimed Cyclops was attacked and torpedoed by a German U-boat. But when historians later compared wartime records and related reports, that idea was often judged to lack direct supporting evidence. Another line of speculation focused on the ship's commander, Lieutenant Commander George W. Worley. He was German-born, often said to have been named Johann Frederick Wichmann, and later changed his name after coming to the United States. Reports describe Worley as a tyrant, a commander whose brutal leadership sowed mutiny among the crew. From there, more extreme rumors grew, that he was a spy or part of some hidden plot. But it's important to be clear, that is largely rumor, shaped by the wartime atmosphere and the fact that the ship disappeared so cleanly. There is no strong official record that supports a cinematic conclusion, that Cyclops was taken in a dramatic, conspiratorial sense. A more grounded explanation is this: the ship may have suffered a failure caused by a combination of factors: bad weather, structural or engine problems, and the destabilizing effect of carrying heavy ore, very different from carrying coal. In the worst-case scenario, a cascading chain of incidents at sea could sink a vessel so quickly that there isn't even time to send a distress signal. But then we're back to the same old problem. If Cyclops truly went down, why is there almost no clear trace? And that question is exactly what has fed the Bermuda obsession for more than a century. From there, believers in the Devil's Triangle began reaching for supernatural explanations. Some pointed to lost technology from the mythical continent of Atlantis, claiming it made the waters abnormal. Others blamed UFOs, and writers who specialize in the unexplained stacked theory after theory on top of forces beyond understanding. But if we want to move forward in a way that actually convinces people, we have to separate two things: what can be verified and what keeps being repeated simply because it's too thrilling to let go. Think about it. If advanced civilizations are watching us, Bermuda could simply be a no-fly zone, a hidden observation post beyond our comprehension. In the universe, then the existence of other civilizations, centuries, even millennia ahead of us, is completely possible. And if they are watching Earth, then maybe the Bermuda Triangle is simply a restricted zone, a hidden operating area where they observe, and our technology isn't advanced enough to detect them. Are you the ones behind the Bermuda Triangle? If you ask it like that, there's only one honest answer. Ask the person who invented the theory, because for now, it's still just speculation. And theories like these, pushed by headlines, storytellers, and authors who trade in mystery, have only made the Bermuda Triangle feel more and more unreal. But if we actually want to pull back the curtain, we're not helpless. Modern science can explain most of what people label unexplainable. Start with the compass. Wrong compass. Crazy compass. The needle doesn't point north. Those lines show up constantly in Bermuda legends. Some claim the area has an abnormal magnetic field, but when you measure and compare geomagnetic data, there isn't reliable evidence for a supernatural magnetic anomaly of the kind the myths suggest. What sailors and pilots have understood for centuries is magnetic declination, also called magnetic variation, the angle between magnetic north, what a compass points to, and true north, geographic north. That angle changes by location and shifts over time. There are also places on Earth where magnetic north and true north nearly align, segments of what's called the agonic line, and that line moves as the years pass. Because most people aren't familiar with this, they hear the compass is off and immediately think something mysterious is happening. And the more dramatic stories, like a needle spinning wildly as if it's being controlled, are usually exaggerated retellings, not a scientific pattern. Second, vanishing without being found. In many cases, ships and aircraft disappear after losing contact, and then no wreckage is recovered. One major factor people overlook is the Gulf Stream, one of the strongest and most important currents in the Atlantic. It forms in the Gulf of Mexico, funnels through the Florida Straits, and surges into the North Atlantic like a river inside the ocean. In its strongest stretches, surface speeds can reach around 2 meters per second or more, which means if debris, floating parts, or even a disabled boat ends up in that current, it can be carried far from the last reported position, fast. Within hours to days, the search area can expand into something massive, and once that happens, nothing was found stops being supernatural. It becomes the ocean and probability. As for why accidents happen in the first place, there isn't one single cause, there are many. Weather plays a role. Storms, squalls, gusts, poor visibility, rapid shifts. Human error plays a role. Wrong headings, bad calculations, misjudging conditions, overtrusting instruments, or poor coordination under pressure. And then there's one term that always comes up, rogue waves, often called killer waves or monster waves. These are waves that rise far higher than the surrounding seas and can appear with little warning. But we should be precise. They're not always 30 meters. Rogue waves are rare, though extreme events around 25 to 30 meters have been recorded under certain conditions. In short, today we have far more detailed and far more realistic explanations for Bermuda. We don't need Atlantis, and we don't need UFOs. If you want a sharper, harder closing point for this section, you can quote the Australian science communicator Carl Kruszelnicki. He has repeatedly argued that the Bermuda Triangle contains nothing supernatural. The rate of accidents and disappearances there is not unusually high when measured as a percentage and compared with other heavily trafficked waters. Bermuda feels famous because it sits near the United States, along major shipping lanes, with huge volumes of flights and vessels passing through. So the raw number of incidents sounds dramatic, but relative to total traffic, it isn't abnormal. Even NOAA, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, has stated plainly that there is no evidence disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle occur more mysteriously than elsewhere. Most can be explained by weather, human error, and the natural conditions of the ocean. And if we return to Flight 19, the non-mystical reading looks like this. The weather that day likely wasn't as ideal as popular retellings suggest. Sea conditions could have been rough, and the era's navigation and radio communications were far more limited than what we're used to today. The most experienced man in the group was the commander, Charles Taylor. But that can also mean the entire formation becomes dependent on a single judgment call. If you misread your position, choose the wrong heading, then keep changing decisions under pressure, you can be pulled farther into the Atlantic, out over deep water, where searching for wreckage or remains becomes a war against probability. And what about the aircraft sent to search? Some witness accounts describe an explosion in the sky and an oil slick on the surface. Historically, large patrol flying boats carrying substantial fuel have suffered severe technical failures, so an explosion soon after takeoff is not impossible. And after the disaster, the U.S. Navy tightened operational controls and safety scrutiny around the aircraft types involved. Still, time will tell whether Krushelnicki's demyth campaign can truly close the Bermuda Triangle story in the public mind. Many before him tried to do the same thing, and the legend never really went away. In fact, decades ago, voices within shipping and insurance circles were already saying Bermuda was not as supernatural as people imagined. Lloyd's of London, for example, has often been cited in articles arguing that incident rates in the region are not abnormal compared with other high-traffic waters. Some claims also point out that insurance premiums for routes passing through the Bermuda area are not dramatically higher in the way sensational stories might imply. But here's the problem. Right when those dismissals were gaining traction, pop culture poured gasoline on the fire. Charles Berlitz's book, The Bermuda Triangle, published in 1974, became a publishing phenomenon and helped spread the name worldwide. Then in 1977, Steven Spielberg's sci-fi film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, referenced Flight 19 in a distinctly mystical way, cementing the idea of an alien abduction in the public imagination. From that point on, no matter how many statistics or statements insisted there's nothing special here, the Bermuda Triangle refused to die because it was simply too compelling to end. And here's what makes it even more complicated. When you fact-check many famous Bermuda stories, you find exaggerations, distortions, and outright errors. Some sensational articles frame Bermuda as a deadly sea, then retell incidents through a supernatural lens. Some authors attach ghost ships to the triangle, even when the coordinates and shipping routes don't actually come near it. Repeat those stories often enough, and they create a feeling that there has to be something there. And then new theories keep arriving, some supernatural, some wrapped in scientific language. One of the more scientific-sounding ideas involves methane and methane hydrates beneath the seabed. The claim is that a sudden gas release could fill a wide area with bubbles, lowering the water's density and reducing buoyancy so sharply that a ship could lose lift and sink fast. Rising gas could also, under certain conditions, disrupt engines or pose hazards to low-flying aircraft. But when you ask geologists, the answer is usually far more cautious. In theory, gas releases can happen, but using them as a single, general explanation for many Bermuda disappearances lacks direct supporting data. Large-scale methane hydrate release events in nature are typically linked to long-term climate and geological shifts, not something you can easily point to as the answer for every incident. And that's the core of it. Bermuda becomes most controversial when people try to force every disappearance into one perfect cause. In reality, the ocean is a complex system, rapidly changing weather, powerful currents, human error, and the limits of technology in different eras. When those factors stack up in the wrong order, disaster doesn't need the supernatural. So what do you think? Does the Bermuda Triangle hold a genuine mystery? Or is it a story grown larger by media, repetition, and our fear of the open sea? If you want, we'll keep digging. What can actually be verified? What was embellished? And why some cases still can't be closed with a final piece of proof. That's where we'll end today's video. Thank you for watching Dark Origin. I'll see you in the next one. And I wish you a peaceful day with your family.